Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp, and as promised, we've got day 2 of our end of year sales. If you missed day 1, well that was yesterday, there'll be a link in the description and the top pinned comment so you can go watch it later, or there's one of those little cards up there, hopefully if I remember. You can click that and it will line it up straight after this. Now we had some brilliant games yesterday like Crosscode, Chained Echoes, Near Automata, and today is no different. Save yourself 10% on any of these using our code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg. I think it's 5% instantly, and you'll also get 5% back in coins, and you can use that whenever you want. Alright, what are the best games on sale and then some SAVALOYS? You'll find out when we get there. Well, let's find out. First up, at its cheapest ever price, we have Diablo 3 Collection at 67% off, down to £16.49. Now, I may have said this once or twice before, but this is an absolute bargain. For the amount of content that you're getting here and the quality of the package, oh man, my mind, it is well worth picking up. Now, you can play up to 4 of you together in co-op. I know Diablo 4 is out on other platforms, but this still has more than enough going for it. And realistically, most of the gameplay mechanics are actually the same. It's one of those where to finish a run, you could potentially do that in 20 or 30 hours, but to complete it is a very different kettle of fish. I had a mate that was playing this for literal years, and because of the way the seasons roll out and things like that, completing it is a difficult thing, but I would say anywhere between 200 and 300 hours should put you in good standing. Now, forged in Shadow Torch, the lovely little Metroidvania that had the city at the start that reminded me of Midgar, is currently at its cheapest ever price. That's 60% off. This is a cracking one. Nice, quick combat, a cool system where your fists can gradually evolve and become more powerful, but also it tells underneath all of that a really interesting story about the occupation of China from Japan, I believe. There are clear references as well to Nazi Germany, and I always enjoy it when, well, I don't always enjoy it, sometimes games mess it up entirely, but I like it when a game does it well. So they have those references, those things for, I guess, for adults to think about, that if you were a kid playing this, you're just thinking, oh yeah, I'm playing as a bionic, I don't know, I can't remember, it's like a rat, isn't it? It was a rabbit, a bionic rabbit with a big fist fighting against these dogs, but for adults we can be playing it and, you know, there's some deeper thought going on there, and I like that when it's done well. Now, as I say, this one is 60% off, and that sale goes on until January the 4th, and it's another that we have a full review of. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is my favourite out of the 2 games. The first one's also on sale, I think it's about $4.99, but Will of the Wisps, while you probably should have played the first, you don't have to, and it is the better game. There are many of you out there I know that prefer this. In fact, quite a lot, maybe about 40% of people seem to prefer this to Hollow Knight, and I can see why. Like, in terms of level design and the way it makes you think as a player, potentially there are some better elements here than Hollow Knight. The studio as well that brought it across, I think it was Moon Studios, part of Microsoft, they did a cracking job with this port. It looks wonderful. I wish we had more games that look like this on the Switch. And then you've got that Studio Ghibli influence, some of the art style, the cutscenes, it's really an enjoyable game, and for £8.24, yeah, definitely one of the best bargains of this sale. Something entirely different would be Neon Abyss at 75% off, down to $4.99 or your regional equivalent. I would say this is potentially a little bit underrated just within its genre. It's all about how you synergize your different items together to get the best possible outcomes. It does have a bit of a roguelike element to it. There are lots of different bosses. You'll unlock new endings as you go through, and there is that randomization that you'd expect from this style. On top of that though, there are also quite a few little mini games in there to keep things interesting, like having to do little piano performances or dance competitions. Again, the little extra things that stick in your memory long after the last rockets have been fired. The sale for that one goes on until January the 7th, and as I say, the cheapest it's ever been. I mentioned in yesterday's episode that I've been playing Chrono Trigger finally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it's taken me so long, but I've been playing it. And my first big RPG, I think when I was a kid, was Final Fantasy VII, and I remember just being completely blown away by everything. To me, it looked like a photograph as a child. I was like, wow, this is it now. Things can't get any better than this. And let's be honest, it hasn't aged particularly well. especially on the character models, but part of me is endeared to those blocky gun fists of Barrett, or as he was known in my game, Steve, because it was named after my older brother who was winding me up at the time. But Final Fantasy VII is down to £5.11 at the moment, and look, yes, some of the mechanics are a little bit more dated, some of the turn-based elements. You've got to remember on this Switch version, you do have some of those accessibility options. You can speed up the combat, you can make it much more easy, but that core story is easily one of the best in the series for me. I know I'm also a big fan of Final Fantasy VIII, and not many people seem to like that one, but yeah, I do think this is worth adding to your collection if you've never played it before. I still think it will hold up, just know that it's a little more clunky, definitely in the visual department. Sephiroth is as cool as he ever was though. Now Astro Near got a review from us when it came out at launch. It's 50% off until January the 4th, taking it down to $14.99. This one's a bit like a sandbox on alien planets. So you land there, you have to set up an outpost, you've got to supply electricity to different nodes, and you use those nodes to expand your reach. The reason you need that base is because it provides you oxygen, and then to explore you need oxygen, so you might build a little vehicle that has a solar panel on it and an oxygen generator. You might find some treasure down a hole that has some more components. It has that real exploratory feel to it, and while the Switch did struggle a little bit, there were a few janky performance moments. Some people seem to think this is like the worst performing game ever, and I'm not sure why. Like, you can see from our review, it looks fine to me, and I've never had any huge issues. There have been a lot of patches since it came out, so there was obviously some stuff that needed fixing, but it could be the actual controls themselves. They can be a little fiddly to start with, and it did that, I guess, was what took me the longest time to get used to. Then the king walks into the room and everyone bows down. It's Sea of Stars, which, although it only has a 10% discount until January the 3rd, has only really just come out and has just won a bunch of awards. It's £26.55, which might sound like a lot of money, but if you're after a Chrono Trigger inspired RPG that maybe I would say doesn't quite live up to that in terms of its script writing, but does in terms of its overall feel and execution, then yeah, that Sea of Stars is well worth adding. It's topped so many Game of the Year lists. People just love it, and it's about the sum of a game's parts, not just one element. It has turn-based combat, it's got a lovely vibrant world. Of course, there's the obligatory riding around in some form of ship or airship at one point, and everything going completely, I was going to say something rude then, but I won't, wrong. And that's what we play these RPGs for, the twists and turns, and it does that more than most other games. The hidden gem for this one is Atom RPG. Now, why oh why didn't more people play this? This is 70% off at the moment, taking it down to just $6.89. And it's like if you took Shadows of Chernobyl, I don't know if you ever played that, or the Stalker series, and you turned it into a top-down, old-school isometric game set within the Soviet Union. You can create absolutely any character you want. You really can. There's tons of different skills. It has the one skill I always look out for, which is being able to pick locks. It's turn-based combat, which was heavily inspired by the early Fallout 1 and 2 games. And it has that atmosphere. That's why I mentioned Stalker. Stalker was a game that just had an atmosphere to it that was quite difficult to put your finger on. But it had that otherness of a place that you'll never know. And I think this does a really good job of that. Yes, it's one for us loot hoovers. You'll be picking up all kinds of junk. It's like, oh look, there's a shelf covered in old tin cans. Yes please. There's branching dialogue choices, there's different ways to solve the different things you'll come into contact with, and yeah, it's very good. Definitely a hidden gem if you like this style. That sale goes on until January the 4th. Sniper Elite 4 doesn't need much introduction, but it's actually one of the best co-op games on the Switch. Yes, it's brilliant solo, and I think it's one of the most competent of the series, certainly on Switch, in terms of its campaign. Sometimes they waffle so much in these games, by the time you get to the end of the intro for like a mission briefing, I don't know about you, but I have checked my phone 4 times, and I haven't got a clue. I mean, I know what Elon Musk has just said on Twitter, something ridiculous, or someone else, but I don't know what on earth has just happened in the story. This one actually was concise, which is a very powerful element to have in a game. The narrative made sense, the objectives were also easy to check during missions, and it has gyro controls. Yes, I know. Not every game needs to have them, but it works well here. Those X-ray kill cams, and also just using your pistol and sneaking around. I need to play this in co-op. I think Glen and I have to play this again because this is so good in co-op. And I think we got about halfway through it. Yeah, brilliant, really good. And you can coordinate your kills. And also you can do quick saves during co-op mode online. And when you quick load, it loads you both, which is quite impressive. Nice bit of netcode that. So yeah, 75% off, £8.74 until December the 31st. So you've only got a couple of days on that one. I'm very happy to say that topping off our 10 before we look at some SAVALOYS, we have Dave the Diver. He is 20% off. What a cracking game this is. And if you didn't know, they've just released the DLC, which includes the Dredge. So it's using the Dredge world. The developers teamed up. And those are two of the best games of the year. And having both of those flavors in this little sushi package is like, well, that's a tasty treat, isn't it? Now, Dave the Diver, it was one of the latest reviews of the year for us, but it was also one of the highest scores. The general premise is you run a sushi restaurant during the day, and then at night / afternoon, you head out, dive below the waves, and they're a mission-based thing, so you might have to get certain ingredients for your sushi, but you'll also be fighting against some really annoying activists. And it's just a very fun game, from fighting giant octopi. Is that the word for more than one octopus? Octopuses? Oh man. Someone just looked at me like, what is he? What is he doing? This is my life. I'm talking about octopi. Ay caramba. But this game, check out our full review. Absolute cracker. Now, the SAVALOYS selection, the Fett Cook, the chipolata, the baked beans on toast selection, the very cheap games. This time round, we've got a hidden gem, and it's in resolution. This is one that I purchased for a review when it came out, because I was like, that looks brilliant. It has that Hyperlight Drifter style vibe to it. But yeah, I just didn't get around to getting the review out. It was actually created by just two German brothers, and it clearly takes inspiration from Hyperlight Drifter. It looks stunning, it really does. There's some hideous boss fights. There's one where he's like chomping at you, this giant head. It feels a bit like, you remember that scene in, what's it called? Akira, where the guy like blows up into that big blob creature at the end and like his massive eye comes on screen. It feels like that boss. It's hideous. But yeah, great game, massively underrated, huge hidden gem, and well worth picking up for, I think it's 80% off at the moment. Grimvalor is 75% off. This is an action RPG platform adventure from Dialight, who developed and published this one. Some real little indie gems here. There are some good boss fights here. There are a few elements that do make it feel, I don't know how to say it in a nice way, a little lower budget, but there's also a lot going for it. It's quite fluid in terms of its movement. There are some really interesting boss fights, and when you roll credits, there's a new game plus mode, which I always like to see. For this price, a nice little SAVALOY for sure, and I think it's the cheapest it's ever been. And don't sleep on Transistor. That's £3.09. What a great game this is. Now, if you're not aware, it comes from Bastion. Well, not from Bastion, the guys that made Bastion, Supergiant Games, also the developers of Hades, so you can kind of see the pedigree there. And Bastion's also on sale, so either of those two. Start with Bastion if you've not played it before. It's probably my favourite. I really like the narration. I think it was the guy's first ever narrative job. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure I read that somewhere. And it's really good. Nice and dark humoured. Brilliant. Both very good games. Slightly differ in terms of their approach. Do check out our full reviews of both of those if you're interested. So that's it. Save yourself money. Don't pay full price. And also we get a little kickback from Nintendo if you use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg, our website. And yeah, happy days. Thanks so much to our Patreons, our members, all of you, to the person that gave us the Switch OLED that we're giving away, as well as the other little physical games that we'll be shipping out. Thanks to all of you, to our Patreons and members. And as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch Up. Cheers, guys.